Welcome to Trine Astrology. I'm Janine Kane. Today I'm going to be going over the November weekly forecast for the 23rd through the 30th. Now this week is intense and very, 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 very significant. We are having the great collective perceptual revision right now. And this is strongly tied into the COVID-19. The themes for this week are the significance of illness as a spiritual healer. And this is so tied into the lunar eclipse. We are having a Uranian and Neptunian infused lunar eclipse, and this is causing a collective paradigm shift. And the paradigm shift largely has to do with us moving from the ectopsychic mind focus to the endopsychic mind focus, to the divine mind focus, to the focus of moving unconscious material into conscious awareness so that we can individuate, become more whole as human beings. This week is also about emotional healing and emotional purging, and there's going to be lessons in compassion. And this is tied into the Mercury-Neptune trine on the 23rd, Neptune direct on the 28th, and the Penumbral lunar eclipse, full moon at 8 degrees and 38 minutes of Gemini, which again is Uranian and Neptune infused. So we are going to have a collective endopsychic shift. And this is a very significant energy shift this week. So let's get into it. So we're starting off the week with Mercury and Neptune themes. So on Monday, November 23rd, we begin the week with Mercury in Scorpio trining Neptune in Pisces at 18 degrees. And as we can see here, Neptune is fairly conjunct the moon here. So Neptune's energy, its divine spiritual energy, is infusing itself into our soul, the moon, and into our minds, Mercury. It is infusing into our soul and into our minds the concept of infinite truth and infinite love that comes from delving deep into our psyches. Healing. Neptune is so much about healing. Healing comes from facing suffering and transmuting that into wisdom. Now, Pluto rules Scorpio, where Mercury is residing, and this is about transmutation of suffering into wisdom. And this is so much of the theme this week. And Mercury and Neptune are playing a huge archetypal part in the lunar eclipse, as we will see. All right, on Saturday, November 28th, let me pull that up. Now on Saturday, November 28th, Neptune here is going stationary direct at 18 degrees. Now, when Neptune goes direct, its energy becomes significantly stronger. The archetypal symbology and psychological function of Neptune is to empathize, to connect to our inner self. It's our ability to connect to God consciousness. Pisces here, it's the motivation toward universal compassion, selflessness, spiritual connection, spiritual growth, and oneness with the universe. So the one side of Neptune in Pisces going stationary direct is the likelihood of increase in illness, lethargy, confusion, escapism. Now, since Jupiter and Pluto conjunction on November 12th, we've seen a surge in reported COVID-19 cases. Now, with Neptune going direct, this isn't likely to help matters, as Neptune is associated with illness. I beg one to consider the meaning that comes from suffering and the significance of illness as a spiritual healer. Illness as a significant spiritual healer. Anyone who has experienced prolonged illness or chronic illness understands the level of transcendence required from such an experience and how illness shifts our perceptions away from the physical, Virgo, into the spiritual. So the outcomes of Neptune's shadow side is the illness part, is greater attunement and connection to universal source. One learns greater compassion for self and other. Now, because of how powerful Neptune's energy is, you can feel this energy a few days before or a few days after it goes direct. So it's definitely an important time to be taking care of our health and our well-being and keep grounded. All right. I want to look at here, because this is very significant, I want to look at Neptune forming a T-square here with the north and south nodes, because the theme of this T-square significantly impacts the energy of this upcoming lunar eclipse on Monday the 30th. Now, Neptune is in its home sign of Pisces, where it will stay until 2025. Now through to mid-2021, Neptune is lightning focused on our collective path, the lunar nodes. Now, the lunar nodes are currently in the constellations of Gemini, that's the north node here, and in Sagittarius, the south node. Now, the north node in Gemini is, the south node in Sagittarius is our collective past, and the north node in Gemini is our collective future. So this tension of growth here, this tension of growth energy with this T-square, so we are collectively evolving through this interpolation between the Gemini and Sagittarius archetypes, which is greatly connected to this lunar eclipse in Gemini. Now, Neptune is associated with illness, the COVID-19, which has been greatly impacting our collective experience, the lunar nodes. So this T-square here is the COVID-19 impacting the collective journey, our collective experience. The reason why Neptune is associated with illness is because when we have an illness, we are reminded of the fragility of the body, of the physical vessel we're temporarily traveling in. Illness reminds us that the body is temporal. It's temporary. The soul is infinite, even without the attachment to an ego, which Virgo holds on tight to. Now, collectively and individually, we are experiencing immense polarization and conflict right now. And with this configuration, we want to expand from a narrow point of view to seeing an all-embracing perspective. And that's the Neptune here. So we need to shift our perceptions, which Gemini and Sagittarius are all about. They're about perceptions. And they are focused in moving our narrow points of view into seeing an all-embracing Neptunian perspective. And illness does that. Neptune is about our inevitable dissolution back to oneness with the universe. In the end, our limited space-time philosophies and beliefs, Gemini and Sagittarius, that have been wreaking havoc on social unity and having been creating collective disharmony, dies. Ultimately, egoic pursuits are futile because only compassion and love is everlasting. Death is the great equalizer. It reminds us of this. And when we're ill or we face a likelihood of death, we get a greater perspective on life. So let's look at this on Monday. Let's look at this eclipse. Let's look at this eclipse here. Let me pull that up for you. So on Monday, November 30th, we have a penumbral lunar eclipse full moon at 8 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius. Now, the penumbral lunar eclipse means it's not a total eclipse. not a total lunar eclipse. And lunar eclipses occur on full moons when the moon and sun are in opposition. They're opposite of each other, as we can see here. Here's the sun in Sagittarius, here's the moon in Gemini, and they're opposite of each other. Now, the lunar eclipse, which happens on a full moon, is facilitating the letting go process that is facilitated during the full moon. Now, eclipses are portal energies that move us toward our right path. What you are doing in your life is greatly setting into action your future, and during a lunar eclipse, this is even more so. Now, the lunar eclipse occurs when the lunar nodes, here's the lunar nodes right here, here's the south node and the north node. Now, the lunar eclipse occurs when the lunar nodes are no farther away than 11 degrees from the luminaries. The luminaries is the moon and the sun, and we can see here the north node is at 19 degrees and the moon is at 8 degrees. The south node is at 19 degrees and the sun is at 8, and so they have 11 degree difference. So we're just at the mark of having an eclipse here. The closer the nodes are to the luminaries, the more powerful the eclipse. Nonetheless, eclipses are always significant times to be centered into being and connect to source. And the archetypal energies are thus amplified and carry a weighty significance. Now, we have several significant aspects bearing weight here during this lunar eclipse. This includes the T-square we talked about, with Neptune squaring the north and south nodes. This also includes Uranus in semi-sextile to the moon and Uranus in quincunx to the sun. Also, we have Chiron sextiling the moon that we're going to be looking at. Now, let's look first at the Moon-Uranus semi-sextile and Sun-Uranus quincunx here. Now, the planets in the signs that are semi-sextile and in quincunx have a difficult time hearing each other because the signs involved have nothing in common. So Uranus in semi-sextile is 30 degrees away, has nothing in common. So let's say that again. Uranus in Taurus, that is 30 degrees away from Gemini, from the moon in Gemini, has nothing in common. Taurus and Gemini have nothing in common. Uranus, quincunx the sun, and Sagittarius have nothing in common. Taurus has nothing in common with Sagittarius. So Uranus in semi-sextile to the moon in Gemini is about freeing our minds and souls in order to attempt to see the true nature of reality. With this aspect here, this is challenging. So the question that Uranus has for the moon in Gemini is this: how close to truth are we really getting if we ignore our emotions and we're only defining our truth formed by beliefs based in phenomenal perceptions of reality? How close to truth are we really getting if we ignore our emotions and we're only defining our truth formed by beliefs in the phenomenal perceptions of reality? We can't. We can't ignore our emotions that come from the atemporal realms, the unconscious, the spirit realms. When the moon is in Gemini, emotions are intellectualized. So there's the challenge there. Now, truth is beyond ideas. And see, Gemini, the moon in Gemini loves ideas. Truth is based on ideas. But truth is beyond ideas, ideals, ideologies, or ideologues. Truth is not limited by the bounds of the physical form. It is limitless, mutable, infinite, existing beyond the attachment to ego which ideas are formed. Truth can nearly be approached by the experience of spirit, and attempt to know it by detaching from the ego, which is very much to do with the Neptune squaring the north and south nodes here. Now, with Neptune squaring the nodes, forming the lunar eclipse, this is the main message here. We're reminded that this is a classroom for the soul, a place to spiritually learn. The human existence is a classroom for the soul. We're having a major portal energy shift in perceptions here with this lunar eclipse. We are collectively moving beyond the mercurial, ectopsychic, phenomenal realms to the Uranian, Neptunian, endopsychic realms of the noumenal, of the unknown, the godly, the spirit. And we are receiving major endopsychic downloads from the endopsychic realms, the realm of the spirit, Uranus, Neptune. It's infusing themselves in this eclipse. So in order to get through illness, because we are all impacted by COVID-19, we have to transcend the body in a way. And ultimately, we always transcend the body when we leave it upon our death. And this is the kind of perceptual shift that we're in right now with COVID, with the COVID era. We're all experiencing this together, this fragility of the body, which is in juxtaposition, expands our awareness of the infinite nature of our souls. And this is the major, major perceptual shift, living in a materialistic, intellectualized society. And you're likely to feel a little bit out of sorts because of this energy. Uranus can do that. Okay, now let's look at the Moon-Chiron sextile here. So Chiron and sextile here to the moon. So we have to go into the depths of our souls here. We're going into the depths of our souls, into the places that hurt. Allow ourselves to purge out wounds. And that's what Chiron's influence is here. And we're making aware unconscious material, that's the Uranus influence, into conscious awareness. And this is helping us heal. So as new information comes into our awareness from Uranus, semi-sextiling the moon in Gemini, causing disorientation, it will be very much a healing experience because we're moving beyond old ways of thinking into a new, all-embracing Neptune ways of perceiving things. And this is a major paradigm shift. And so this week is just infused with this Neptunian, Uranian, powerfully endopsychic shift of collective consciousness. All right, future highlights. We have Mercury entering into Sagittarius on the 1st. We have Mercury-Chiron trine on the 4th. And we have Venus-Neptune trine and Venus-Mars Quincunx going exact on the 5th. And we have Mercury-Uranus Quincunx on the 6th. So we have a lot of shifting of psychologies, a lot of shifting going on next week, a lot of Mercury energy happening again. So I really, really appreciate you joining me for another Trident Astrology Weekly Forecast. And I look forward to you joining me next week. I post my forecast on the weekends for the week ahead. And I want to send you all, my beloved fellow humans, so much love and blessings. Blessings and love.